All right, so we're diving into something that's just everywhere right now, and that is LGBTQ marketing in 2024.
Yeah.
And honestly, with all the articles you sent over, the industry takes, think pieces, lists of like movers and shakers,
Yeah.
it feels like trying to take a sip from a fire hose.
Right.
Everyone's talking about how brands are approaching Pride Month differently this year, but like,
Yeah.
is it progress or is it just a different kind of performative?
I
Like, let's unpack this.
Absolutely. And what makes it such a fascinating deep dive is that we're seeing it all happen in real time. This isn't something that's like 5 years old we're looking back on. This is a real evolution in how brands approach LGBTQ representation, especially after the roller coaster of 2023.
Oh, tell me about it. 2023 was wild. I feel like everybody remembers where they were when that whole Dylan Mulvaney Bud Light thing blew up.
It became a lightning rod for sure. And for those that haven't had a chance to kind of keep up, Bud Light sent Dylan, a transgender influencer, a custom beer can to celebrate her 1-year anniversary of coming out publicly.
And the internet basically exploded.
Yeah. Yeah, it went way beyond online outrage. I mean, Bud Light's sales plummeted. They were hit with boycotts. Their CEO had to address it publicly. And they weren't alone, by the way. I mean, Target faced a very similar storm for its Pride merchandise.
Right, with some groups saying that they were, pushing an agenda, especially towards kids.
Right.
And it was a stark reminder of how tricky it is for brands to navigate these waters.
For sure.
It was almost like a tale of two prides happening at once. Like you have the celebration, but you also have the resistance.
Mm-hmm.
Did that backlash scare brands off for 2024, though?
Well,
Because I was looking at some of the visuals from this year's Pride, and it did seem like there were fewer rainbow logos, more muted campaigns.
you're picking up on something really important there. Forbes actually reported that a good chunk of brands significantly reduced their Pride-themed marketing this year. And it really does seem like they're wary of attracting that same kind of heat that they got in 2023.
Which is kind of wild when you think about it, because the same article mentioned that the LGBTQ market spending power is almost $4 trillion globally.
Yeah.
That's a lot of potential customers to alienate, potentially.
It is a high stakes balancing act for sure. I mean, on the one hand, there's a very clear business case for including the LGBTQ community. On the other hand, as we saw in 2023, there is the fear of backlash and bad PR.
Right.
But here's where it gets really interesting. While some brands are hitting the brakes, a new generation of LGBTQ marketers is taking the wheel.
Ooh, I like where this is going. Is this where that Amplify article, 10 LGBTQ marketers to follow, comes into play?
You got it. And this piece, it wasn't just like a fun listicle. This highlighted a huge shift that's happening right now.
Right.
Representation matters.
Yeah.
And especially in a field like marketing. I mean, this is a field that shapes perceptions, it tells stories, it sets the cultural tone.
For sure.
And to have more LGBTQ voices in those rooms, that's how you get authenticity that actually resonates.
Yeah. Makes you wonder if maybe this is part of what's pushing those bigger brands to kind of rethink things. Like, if you're not getting it right,
Yeah.
this new wave of marketers clearly is. And I feel like consumers can see the difference.
Yeah, it's about walking the walk and not just rainbow washing for a month, right? And these folks are showing what that actually looks like.
Absolutely. Okay, so walk me through a few of these like marketing stars from the article. Like, who are these people? What makes them stand out?
Okay, so take Matt Scalarud, for example, president of Pink Media. They are laser focused on connecting businesses with the LGBTQ community, but doing it in a way that feels genuine, not like pandering, And have you seen any of his hashtag I Love Gay Today videos?
Oh yeah, those are great. They're really fun. They're really heartfelt. They feel like something you'd actually want to share with someone, not just an ad that you're like immediately going to scroll past.
Exactly. And then you've got Rocio Sanchez, who is all about empowering queer entrepreneurs, specifically entrepreneurs of color. And I think that intersectionality is so crucial. It's not just about saying like, oh, there's one LGBTQ community. It's about acknowledging all these layers within it.
Love that.
Right.
And what about Jennifer Rhiannon Lewis? She's the CEO of Lex, right?
Yes.
Which is a social app specifically for LGBTQ folks.
Right on. And I think that highlights something really interesting, too, is that it's not always about just marketing to the community.
Yeah.
It's also about fostering the connection and the innovation that's happening within it. And I think, Jennifer's a perfect example of that.
So it's almost like reclaiming the narrative a little bit.
Totally, yeah.
Like if the big brands are going to shy away, these folks are like, okay, well, we're going to step up and we're going to tell our own stories on our own terms, and it's going to resonate way more.
It is a powerful shift. And what's so fascinating is these marketers really represent a break from the old way of doing things. I mean, they're not just working for big corporations. They are building their own platforms, controlling how their stories are told, and of course, who benefits.
Right, exactly. Okay, that's inspiring, but it also makes me think, like, where does this leave those bigger brands then?
Yeah.
Like, if they pull back from pride campaigns and these LGBTQ marketers are going off and kind of forging their own paths, what does that mean for representation on like a mainstream level?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And to answer that, I think we need to look beyond just the rainbow-drenched spectacle of Pride Month. This is about how brands engage with the LGBTQ community 365 days a year, right?
Right.
It's about moving from performative allyship to genuine support, from checking boxes to building bridges.
So ditching the rainbow-colored glasses, as they say.
Exactly.
What are we seeing when we really like zoom in on that day-to-day engagement?
Well, this is where it gets, I think, really, really interesting, because that Modern Retail article that you sent over,
Yeah.
they nailed it. I mean, because slapping a rainbow on something during Pride Month, it doesn't cut it anymore.
No, consumers are too savvy for that now.
Especially younger generation.
Well, 100%.
I mean, they can sniff out inauthenticity a mile away. They want to see brands taking a stand on issues that matter to them all year round, not just when it's trendy or convenient.
Yeah.
And that leads to a huge GE question that I think a lot of companies are grappling with right now. How do you actually demonstrate allyship through action and not just advertising?
Yeah, that's a lot easier said than done, I would imagine.
Oh, absolutely.
But what's interesting is that Pink Media press release that we were talking about. Like, while some big brands are hesitant, it sounds like these LGBTQ owned businesses are thriving by actually adapting your strategies.
Okay, so Pink Media is out there killing it. What's their secret sauce? Spill the tea.
Well, they're masters of what we call blended marketing.
Okay.
They weave together these really authentic, heartfelt stories on social media and then back it up with laser-focused advertising, right? So it's about meeting the right people where they are with a message that truly resonates.
And it clearly works. Like, they were boasting about this one campaign that racked up like 10 million video views in a week.
Right. It proves that understanding your audience, knowing their values, and speaking directly to their experiences, that's the key. It's not just about visibility. It's about that genuine connection. This is making me think about something. Like, it's easy to get caught up in all the headlines about brands getting slammed and kind of assume that everyone's backing down. But is that really the whole story here?
Not by a long shot. I mean, for every brand that's hesitant, there are others who are doubling down, right? They're increasing their investments.
Right.
They're investing in, LGBTQ-owned businesses, supporting nonprofits, creating campaigns that truly center LGBTQ voices and stories. And they're doing it year-round, not just when it's, convenient.
Right. That's the nuance that often gets lost, isn't it? It's not as simple as pro or anti.
It is.
We're talking about a whole spectrum of approaches, a real evolution in how this all plays out.
Totally. And it's not just brands figuring it out on their own either. I mean, consumers are a huge part of this equation.
Oh, yeah.
We're seeing people become much more vocal about their values, way more discerning about the brands they support.
Which makes sense. I mean, when you think about it, we're living through like a pretty significant cultural shift.
Right.
Conversations about LGBTQ rights, representation, they've gone mainstream.
Yeah.
And that kind of visibility, it sparks both progress and pushback at the same time.
It's like that saying, the only constant is change. And that is definitely true for LGBTQ marketing right now.
With pretty high stakes, too. I mean, for brands, it's about, market share, brand loyalty, all that. But for the LGBTQ community, it's about something much, much bigger. Visibility, representation, and ultimately, I think, acceptance.
And not just acceptance from the outside world. I mean, it's about the LGBTQ community defining for itself what authentic representation looks like.
Like reclaiming the narrative, shaping the conversation, refusing to be defined by anyone else. That's really powerful.
Absolutely. And that conversation is happening everywhere, in marketing, in media, in boardrooms, in living rooms.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, I mean, where does that leave us? Brands are reassessing, LGBTQ marketers are taking center stage. Consumers are more discerning than ever. It's what a time to be paying attention, honestly.
Uncertainty and opportunity. I think that's the name of the game right now.
Hmm.
And it's what makes this whole topic so ripe for
And
exploration.
that's what we've tried to do today, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Create a space for thoughtful conversation, even when, the answers aren't always super clear-cut.
Totally. Because sometimes asking the right questions is even more important than having all the answers.
Which leads me to my final question for you. We've covered a lot of ground here. But if we had to boil it all down, what's the one thing you hope our listener walks away with from this conversation?
I would say this. The future of LGBTQ marketing isn't just about brands figuring out how to sell to a community, right? It's about recognizing the LGBTQ community as a powerful force shaping the market itself. They're driving trends, demanding authenticity, and pushing for change.
I love that.
Yeah.
So moving beyond seeing LGBTQ inclusion as just a box to check, and instead embracing it as a fundamental shift in how we think about business, representation, and honestly, what it means to create a more inclusive world for everyone.
Exactly, and that's a shift that's long overdue.
Couldn't agree more. This has been incredibly insightful. Thank you so much for taking this deep dive with me.
The pleasure was all mine. Until next time.